welcome to Transform Podcast. I'm Luz, and
And I'm Anne.
and today we are so excited to welcome Tigger Huchel.
That's right. You said
Welcome.
it right. Thank you.
Yeah, there you go. I had
Thank you,
hesitated there
ladies.
a little bit, but I'm like, I know I'm right because I've done this before.
And I like to see people squirm.
I know you do. Well, thank you so much for agreeing to be on our podcast. I have loved you from the minute I met you. And so I was very excited when you said yes.
Oh my goodness, I love you too. And seriously, both of you ladies are, a great part of the communities, a great leader in these communities, and what we're doing collectively together to be able to share our works and our transformations is has been a great journey to watch everybody moving forward in our all of our journeys. So thank you for having me.
And that's so fitting because that's exactly what we're focusing on here is transforming and transformation, because that is the organization that the company that Ann and I founded. And when we were thinking about guests that I know have gone through tremendous transformations, you were one of those guests that I thought of immediately. I said, you know what, we have to have Tigger on. She's amazing, and I have loved hearing about your journey, and I thought that this would be an ideal place for you to tell us a little bit more about what you've gone through. But I know that you've gone through more transformation since joining this community. And so we would love to hear all about your past, your current, and what you're going through currently.
Amazing. Thank you for that. So, yeah, I'll just start off by saying I actually was a diesel mechanic in the Navy. I met my ex-husband while I was in the Navy, and we had 5 kids together. So that didn't give me a lot of time once I did get out of the Navy after 4 years of active and 4 years inactive, for me to be able to go out and get a job, right? Because 5 kids under the age of 10 years old was not going to pay off in the grand scheme of things when it comes to childcare. So I quickly got into the retail sales world and then evolved into sales. Always had a sales position throughout my career. Once I did get back out into the workforce, and that was quite some years, probably when my oldest son was graduating high school, actually, is when I started going to the career world, right? And always found myself in these not so great sales roles. I mean, they were good sales roles. I liked the work, but the companies that I were choosing to go to, I actually discovered this a couple years back in my awakening. But anyway, these companies that I would go to were not the best companies that I wanted to work for. So I would always be getting let go, or they weren't making enough funds, so they were had to downsize, and the whole rigmarole. I did get this position to fit my diesel mechanic experience and got hired with this big trucking company. They're worldwide, nationally known. They're based out of Texas, called Rush Truck Centers. And I became a sales rep for them, and it just fit with it. I just knew everything about all the parts and all the engine, the whole thing. So I loved that role. But what I did discover after being there a little over 3.5, 4 years is that it was a man's world, right? And the good accounts were all going to the guys, and I would get the scraps and struggle and the whole 9 yards. I then decided I'm going to better myself. I actually went back to school because I didn't go to college because I went right to the Navy after high school. And I earned my degree while working full time, and got a bachelor's in business administration. So from there, I evolved into bigger, better financial and more fitting companies that were what I needed to succeed. And I ended up working with a couple of like performance friction brakes. They made brake rotors and brake pads for the Porsche racing cars. Yeah, just cool stuff like that. So that was I loved doing that. But again, I wanted to get into the pharmaceutical world because that's what my husband is doing. And I was like, you know what? I think I would be really great. I want to be able to feel like I can contribute to somebody feeling better, making a difference with the whatever drug that I was going to rep, I was going to make the best rep for these people, this group of whatever disease states it was. And unfortunately, I would get to the second and third interview, but just never got hired. And I was just like, okay, so then that doubt starts fitting in, right? Your mind starts thinking, what did I say wrong? Why didn't they pick me? Like all the things, like I don't have, and then by this time now, my husband's been in for 25 years. Back in the day, you can get a sales rep job for, pharmaceutical sales, any like that. Now you got to have experience and then get hired again through another company. Anyway, long story short, I get back into the healthcare industry by being a rep I was a marketing director for a nursing home, and they owned 9 different facilities. And I think 3 of them were like assisted living, and one was a mental illness facility. However, I love the thought of being able to help the senior citizens and any other mental illness facility that needed the families to help get placed. Well, it was right after, actually, I think it was the tail end of COVID. So it now transformed from nursing home being full staffed, fully filled, to now home healthcare setting. And so it was really, really difficult to market to these seniors and to their families to get them back into the nursing home. The biggest thing that I've learned through that, and I did leave, was that the marketing company didn't give a crap about human life. All they cared about was their bottom line dollar. They didn't care about the buildings that they have owned, and it was just not a good fit. Like CNAs were leaving left and right to go chase a dollar more an hour at another facility. It was the nursing staff were just lackadaisical. The management company owned a CNA firm where they hired these, so you couldn't fire them. So it was just stuff like that. Finally, I've had enough. I entered the REAN group, the women's group from Texas, and it's a real estate group. Are you familiar with that, Ann?
Yeah.
Yep. So I joined them before I joined Pace Morby. My son actually brought me to the Pace Morby group. I saw him on a video and I was like, it was a month after I joined the REAN group. And I was like, this group is not getting me anywhere. They didn't really have the training. It was the same old Zoom, same old, it was just not fitting for me. I see one video of Pace and I was like, I don't know who this guy is. I like his style. There's something about him magnetizing me to him. But when he started doing his famous whiteboard teachings, I was hooked. Like that for me was like, I needed that, right? I needed to see how these work. And so that's when I joined. And then that was April of 2022. And then the month later is when Gator program came out. So I joined Gator right away. So I've been in for a little over 3 years. I found my lane of being a connector here in these communities and have been around and been vocal and supportive and connecting people just out of generosity and just truly wanting to help solve problems for people. So I got pretty well known. And then my kids live out in Arizona. So when I go to Arizona, I would say, hey, I'm in Arizona. What's going on? And he would invite me to go on a trip. There was a couple guys that I was with at one particular time where we went and did shot videos, YouTube videos. And people started seeing me and, Pace would shout out. And so they're like, oh my gosh, Tigger, Tigger, Tigger. So yeah, so I was unsure. I've always been, now this is going into transformation. I've always been a person of being regimented, give me structure, the military. Um, my mother was strict, controlling, give me structure. I follow along, I follow suit, and I'll be good. Well, with Pace's group, yes, he had his videos and his trainings and all that, but he did a lot of talking in between training of, his videos. So I didn't go through all of the trainings that he had, and they've updated it since then. But I was always a person that felt like, oh, I can't take action because I don't know all the steps. Or oh my gosh, what if I do get this under contract? Then what? So that fear-based analysis paralysis was a thing for me for a good year and a half. When I finally quit my job, I did this full time starting January and fumbled my way into the lending space. I had joined a direct to agent group that didn't go very well. Anyway, I say wasted. I'm going to correct that. I joined the group, learned a lot from that group, didn't go anywhere. But what it did do is got me into connecting people with money. And that's why I joined Gator. I thought I was going to be an EMD lender, a couple thousand here or there. But I realized, no, that's not what I needed to do. I just started connecting people to private money lending and started getting deals. And, I think 1 month, well, actually 3 months, I made 30 grand. I was like, holy crap, this is a thing. Long story short, I go into December of that year and we learned that connecting is not the best way to be going because then you're acting on behalf of a broker, the whole 9 yards. So that's when Pace did this Zoom and it was like eye-opening and it was like, whoa, we need to start getting this dialed in correctly and do all the right steps. So anyway, that's evolved from then. And then I've gotten connected with a hard money lender. That's where I'm at currently. And
Tigger,
I'm not,
can I ask, when you said
yeah,
about you getting all the right steps with Pace, was that because the way you were going about doing the connecting was open to legal challenge?
yeah. And unknowingly, like, right?
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
Pace made it look like, oh, you just connect two parties and then you're good to go, right? And he makes it look easy. And again, I'm just taking what I hear, what other people hear, and it's like the telephone game. We're all in a circle. Pace says something, I tell you, Ann, you tell Luz, and then by the time it comes back to me, it's a totally different story. So I think Pace had to get a handle on that because there were people coming back to Pace saying, I'm getting sued, I'm going, like I got a notice, da 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 da. So he had to come back out and say, listen, if you're a connector, you are acting on behalf of a broker and you are not licensed, and the SEC will come after you pronto if you continue to do so, right? So you have to have skin in the game. You have to dial in what exactly you're doing to collect funds. And until that loan is cured at the end, that's when you have at least not to do, regular check-ins, but you're still on the hook if in the fact that broker or that borrower comes back and says, hey, you didn't provide or whatever. So that really took everybody started taking notice then. It was like, oh, we've all been doing this wrong, right? So that's, how we transformed into this to where I'm at now. And I was going to say that I'm connected now with a family office, and this is a little different than what PACE teaches because PACE teaches, never send money to a third party. Well, this group that I work with, it is a family office and they have like $600 billion to lend out. This money needs to be $1 million and above. But the caveat to that is you need to come in with 10% down. Now, this 10% down goes into an attorney's escrow account in Georgia. It's their title escrow attorney. This attorney will do all the due diligence. They will, and you take from that 10% down, they will take, their fees of what it costs for their time to put your deal into place. But that money comes back to you when you pay off your loan. So it's not money that just disappears or what some call an engagement fee. It's money that is yours that you will get back when your loan is paid back. Now, these loans vary in terms because it's dependent on the deal, right? It could be a 5-year loan, it could be a 10-year loan, 15-year loan. They will fund anything that's legal. They will fund anything that is legal as long as the deal looks and works out, with numbers, they underwrite it. And that you have the capabilities of paying it back. This family office gentleman wants to ensure that you are making money. So if you're spending $1, he wants you to make $3, right? Now, this is also it's a loan where the lender will take out insurance. He takes out two different insurance policies, one to protect himself and two to protect the borrower that he pays for, so that they know that he's not going to run off with their 10% down, right? So if that happened, the insurance company then goes after whichever party has committed or defaulted. So it is a little bit of adjusting with our owners club people. I have 17 people that reached out to me because of our retreat back in Monterey, talking about this because it's unheard of and it's not the norm with PACE, right? So I am helping, truly trying to help those get their deal done, 10% down. If you have to borrow that 10% down from a private money lender, you can ask for above what you're asking for your project to cover the cost of that private money lender. So if you didn't have your 10% down, you could go to a private money lender, ask for 60 to 90 days of funds to be borrowed, which you will receive. You get 100% of what you're asking for. So this 10% that goes into the escrow account is not deducted from the amount you've requested. It's 100% loan. 10% sits in this account. You can pay your money, private money lender back for this 10%. Make sense?
It does, yeah. And is this way of working fairly unique, or is it just unique to Owners Club?
It's fairly unique to our Pace Morby communities because
Right.
everybody's like, oh, I don't know about this. This is like Pace always says never to send to a third party. This third party isn't a third party, it's your lender. So
Yeah.
you are, and if you decided, and they're not going to make you turn this 10% in before you see terms. They're going to give you your term sheet. If you agree to the terms, then great. You have 72 hours to decide whether you want to proceed or whether you don't want to proceed. And if you don't, you'll get your funds back. Now, it
Mm.
might minus all the due diligence and the attorney's time that they worked on this. But the rest of it, you get paid back.
Nice. Yeah, nice. Um, that's been quite a migration, really, from being a Navy mechanic to being at the cutting edge of interesting new ways of financing. What did you find a challenge in that process?
Personally,
Yeah.
it was the way. So now this is kind of going into my intuition, my woo-woo stuff, but the way we were raised really does have a lot to do with how we see the world, how we raise our children, how we act or function in an employment status or role, and what we really truly think about ourselves. So it is a transformation for me from where I was when I was 17-year-old kid running away from my parent, my mother, to joining the Navy to get away from her, to joining or marrying basically my mother and my ex-husband, knowing full well 6 months into my marriage, I should not be married to this person, but I stay anyway because of, well, I'm going to make this fit because my mother married 4 times. I'm not going to be like that. Thick or through thin. This is a marriage. This is what we're supposed to do, right? That whole thing. And only to know that inside that I still knew that I should not stay married. Then I kept having more kids. The more he looked at me, the more the each time he would travel for work, come back, I was pregnant, and it was like I was pregnant forever. I have my 5 beautiful kids. What I did realize too at the end of my father had passed. So in my spiritual awakening, my awareness that I don't have to put up with this anymore, right? Like I am this person. I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired of this relationship. This is not a give and take. It's a take, 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 right? And so I realized too, what is it that I'm showing in my children that I'm going to see in their relationships? Are they going to treat somebody like that? Are they going to allow someone to treat them like that? What did they learn from watching their father and I in our relationship? So that really set in, right? Then my father died. That was eye-opening and awakening. And that's what really triggered all of this. So in my journey of growing self and learning to heal traumas that, mother wounds, generational, family, ancestral, we are product and have holding traumas that we have never met our ancestors that they carried, and it's been lineages and lineages that have been brought into us that we have really not unconsciously taken on as a personality, as a character. So in my journey, I have really, 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 it was so funny. There was a gentleman that was coming to us for our multifamily group and was looking to help us fund some money. And he mentioned in this conversation of business that he had a good friend that committed suicide. And I was like, whoa, why is this guy telling us this story about business, in this business conversation? He was a contractor, he was a good friend, and he truly wants to make a difference to help those, that family, and just help people as they also grow in their work, in their private lives. And I just thought, wow, that's just really weird that this guy brought this up. I have been told that I actually connect to people that have taken their lives, souls, and it just clicked. Like, why did this guy just talk to like random guy? Never knew him. He was brought from somebody else to the table for us to talk about this multifamily deal, and he starts talking about this gentleman, his best friend that passed away. And I was like, well, there's something there. Well, 2 days later, he texted me and says, what a great conversation. And I was like, yeah, it was really great. And I said, it was especially interesting that you mentioned your friend that passed away. I just got goosebumps, and, I just feel like there's some kind of energy here between us. And he's like, yeah, I agree. I hope to do business with you soon. The next day, he sends me a random text. Hey, have you heard or read the Conversations with God book? And I was like, no, but I feel like I probably should. I'll take a look at it. Thanks for, suggesting it. He then comes back with another text and he says, have you ever seen on Netflix this series, Another Self? And I was like, no. He's like, it's about family constellations. And I was like, oh, like stars and, Pluto and the whole constellations and all the things, right? So I'm thinking that. So I look up this document or series, and it's not. It's like family constellations, how these three ladies, meet in life, and they talk about their history and families and friends. And I was like, well, this doesn't have anything to do with, constellations. Like, what the heck is this? I end up binge watching it a Friday night. My husband goes up to Chicago for a work trip. I binge watch it was a plant medicine binge watching, by the way, AKA psilocybin. It was my own journey, right? But I know this to be fact. Everything happens for you, not to you, right? I binge watched that till 4:21 in the morning. I watched 6 solid episodes, each episode having something to do that I've already healed in my life. It was incredible. I then watched the rest of it. That's 4 other episodes for the first season, and then binge watched the next day the last 8 of the series, and it was incredible. Like literally everything that happened in this series, I've gone through and healed. It was incredible. Then I look up because I'm not really an avid reader. I don't like to read. Not that I don't like to read. I fall asleep if I start reading books, right? But I buy them anyway. I mean, I buy these books because I have good intent to like pick something up and start reading. And I start reading, and then I couple chapters in, and it sits by the wayside. Anyway, so I was like, there has to be a movie about this Conversations with God. Sure enough, it's an old movie, and I watched that as well. And it was just as synchronistic as it could be. If you guys aren't familiar with, I suggest you check out the book, check out the old movie. I think it was done in 2009, 2005, something like that. But it was very interesting on how we listen to God. Do we listen to God? Are we hearing God? Are we having conversation with God, right? I am a God-fearing, Jesus-believing person in religion status, right? But I also now know that we are also one source. So my whole transformation to this point, being able to be free with my passion, which is speaking about this, and then these other things fall into place with real estate and lending. Jim Vani and I are also looking to purchase assisted living buildings that are sitting empty and to transform them into live, work, and thrive community hubs where in those buildings there's a salon. There was a little, like a room for a salon that the people would come in and help the residents in the building to get their hair cut. There's also a commercial kitchen, and there's also a memory care or a dementia care in most of these buildings. So we are going to turn these dementia care into a daycare or a preschool so that the families that live in the building can walk their kids down to the daycare or to the preschool. The salon, somebody can live in the building and run their own business, lease out these spaces, and then the same with the commercial kitchen. They can lease out the commercial kitchen from us in addition to living on property if somebody wants to. But that's another avenue of income. Now, another thing is that there are spaces in these buildings where they had community TV shows or whatever. They would sit in the community room and play games or whatever. We can utilize those spaces for area residents to come in and hold like healthcare screenings, free education for financial or whatever the case may be. But people can come in and they can get free education in these buildings as well. Or somebody could rent them out for family events in the area.
I mean, I think there's such a move or such a need and an increasing recognition that co-living is an answer to an awful lot of stuff. I was just with the homelessness organization in Jacksonville, and they have this thriving building that has healthcare on the ground floor, childcare, playgrounds, all this kind of stuff, and then emergency accommodation next floor up, and then permanent long-term accommodation above that. They're looking for scattered stuff in the community. We're doing a co-living house with homeless people. We're doing co-living house for workers. And the more you think about it, the more you think the need for this across so many different demographics. It's not just about an affordability thing, it's about a community approach. And I think if you think about it, we've been really sold a not terribly helpful story with this whole drive your car to the suburbs, bring up your kids inside your white picket fence, drive your car into work, queue up in traffic, stress yourself out because neither of you can get home on time for the kids. The kids have to be transformed everywhere by vehicles. What if we had more of a horizontal sort of interface, a horizontal approach rather than these sort of vertical approaches of, you might not want to live in community at all the stages of your life, but actually bringing up kids is really handy to do that, not as an isolated little family. Elderly care is great to not do that as an isolated or in this very medical first kind of buildings. So it's increasingly this idea of unity and oneness, and what that means from a built environment seems to be certainly presenting itself to me. I'm not sure if it's coming to the fore for everybody, but
I
Luz and
literally
I
have
certainly
goosebumps from
feeling
that.
that.
From that, what you just said, I literally have goosebumps because it is a movement of the collective consciousness that we have to do something. Something has to be done.
And
But
it's going back to the it takes a village where we pulled away from that so long ago. And now everybody is just on their own. They don't have family nearby. They don't have a place to take their children. It- so this that you're describing, absolutely. It takes a village and everybody helping each other out.
repurposing these malls that are sitting empty, we could repurpose those for the same thing, right? We can, rehab these into communities as well, a self-contained community, like we're just talking about, old multifamily buildings that have a restaurant in it, or office space in it that now can be transformed into daycare or whatever, healthcare screening, or on-site type of urgent care situation. So hospitals is another one. Tom, gosh, I can't think of Tom's last name, but anyway, he was helping people look for hospitals to repurpose for foster kids, aged out foster kids, or foster kids that need placement because our states are just swamped with foster kids. And what are the different abuse rates that are in these smaller foster care, and because these foster parents are just out for the money, or the foster kids that are getting separated. There's a big group, I forget the actor. There's an actor out in California who bought a piece of property, and he is keeping foster families, like siblings, in a community. He's building a circle, like off these
Yeah.
land. He's building these communities where it's inviting, sisters and brothers to stay in one home, and they're in this community that they can all be a part of. So yeah, you're absolutely, it is happening. We're at the cusp of these things happening at a larger volume.
Yeah, and I think what's really interesting is technology has allowed a different form of community. I mean, look at us guys. We're Texas, Illinois, Florida. I came together. I got into this from social media. I found Pace on Facebook, and I think we've got this sort of tech community that we go, yeah, yeah, it works. 20 years ago we'd have gone, what? It's going to be normal that you work like this, and then our whole rush to the suburbification of the way we are living, that is, I think, is really up for question. Because if it works for foster kids, it works for elderly care, it works for families with kids. Just think of the amount of money you families could save if you weren't expected to fund every little thing of your living environment, from childcare to 2 point whatever cars to mowing your flipping
Keeping up
lawn.
with the Joneses, right?
Keeping up
That
with the
type of thing.
Joneses, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
your kids could have a better environment because you had some
And
shared
learn
resources.
and
Yeah,
learn that I don't have to have a Maserati or BMW or a Rolex watch on my arm to be looking successful, right?
yeah,
This is the norm for everybody. And be responsible, right? Responsible with your finances, responsible for, I a couple of my kids are minimalist, and I'm like, how do you live without a blender or I don't even know, some basic pans, but they survive just fine without it, right?
yeah,
You know,
yeah. Yeah, I think it's really liberating to be able to walk through stores going, I've got one of those. I don't need to, I can keep my own money in my own pocket and not in your pocket because I'm not going to be suckered into this. But that's so much easier when you're in communities that reinforce that.
Mhm.
Tell us about you have really embraced this, as you call it, woo-woo intuition sort of approach to real estate. How does that present itself in how you work?
Well, if we think about it, everybody has intuition. We choose to ignore it and not realize that we're not choosing the right path, or we listen to our intuition. And that can be as a body feeling. You get a feeling, you get a gut check. Just something drops into your head like, oh, I don't know if you should be doing that. Like, these are little droplets of your own intuition telling you you might want to rethink that, or full speed ahead. It also happens to be in your personal relationship. Like me, I knew 6 months in that I married this man. I should not be married to this man, but I stayed 22 years because my pride, my ego said, dang it, you're going to make this thing work. You're not going to be like your mom. You're not going to be married 4 times over. You're going to go thick and through thin, because that was, you know, sure, we look at marriage seriously, right? And I did back then. But also I think it is a generational, um what do I want to say? Basically, people raised in the 40s and 50s, you can't tell me everybody was happy, right? But did they have a place to go? Maybe not. Was it women that didn't have a job that they could go to? Probably not. It was the man worked hard. The man comes home, sits in his recliner, hand down his pants, drinking his beer, waiting for the woman to say, "Here's your dinner, honey," and does all the cooking and the cleaning and the kids and da 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 da, right? Um, I think that we now have come to the conclusion that we all don't have to, follow in our great grandparents or grandparents' footsteps in forcing ourselves into staying into something that we're not really meant to stay in. I learned through my awakening that this relationship that I did have with my ex-husband was for a reason. And I grew from that, right? I learned what I didn't want in a person in my next marriage or my next relationship. I learned I am a strong individual woman person, right? Like I can make my own decisions. I have the authority on what I'm going to do, what I'm not going to do. Control was another thing. Like my mother, basically, when I said I married my mother, I literally married my mother. My mother was controlling. I had strict curfew. Like that's why I was a good fit for the military. You know, you conform, you
Mm,
do as you're told. And that's exactly how I was raised. You speak when you're spoken to, and you do as I say, not as I do, basically. But that was the way I was raised. So, I look at my kids, and they all five have different personalities. They all five have different strengths. I'm so proud of them because the way that I was raised wasn't very loving, wasn't very giving, non-affectionate. I look at them in their different ways. Are they perfect? No, heck no, none of us are, right? But I just am glad that they are their own person. And, they didn't have to have somebody dictate to them or be glued to somebody that made them feel like they needed to stay with this person or marry this person. And so, yeah, the woo-woo part of it, I am a psychic medium as well. And everybody has this gift, too. If you truly, I think we all have these, what's that word, where something happened before, like, oh, I've been here before. What is that? Deja vu.
Déjà vu.
Everybody has deja vu. Those are things that we have already saw in the past. Like there's, that whole thing. Did you guys see the movie Everything Everywhere All at Once? There's
Yes. I saw it twice actually because I think the first time I saw it, I wasn't in that mindset yet to see it. And the way that I then said, I need to watch this again. There's something more here. And
yes.
I actually saw it a couple weeks ago and I went, wow.
I just got goosebumps in my whole entire body again.
Yeah.
Also, Avatar, the Avatar series.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
That is also very much one consciousness, like the mycelium from underneath.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, like it's so cool how you recognize these synchronicities in your life as you move forward in your journey of awakening and awareness. And it's not something to be like people, like I've run into this with my own family, like, oh my gosh, that's of the devil. You shouldn't be doing this, because I do. Reiki is another one that I've told that I should be doing with my hands. But I do have a pendulum, and I do have tarot cards, and I have angel cards, and I use these tools. I have dowsing rods. You can talk to spirit with dowsing rods. Yeah, okay. We have to be careful in what we're reaching out to and what we're asking for. And it's always a piece of love, light, and for the betterment of all, not for self-satisfying self, right? Or not to like, oh, I'm going to put a hex on somebody today because they didn't do what I want. It's nothing like that. So people all the time think, well, you have to be careful. sure, you do have to be careful, but what you put in is what you get out. If you're thinking negatively, intently, you're going to attract that energy negatively and bring something in, maybe that you're
You have to be
focusing.
careful in everything. You have to be careful in your
Absolutely.
own logic skills and
Absolutely.
approach and what you're buying on mainstream media, on social media, you know, conceptually buying. It's the same balance you need between your head, your heart, your intuition, your experience, all that kind of stuff. I think you're absolutely right. There's no point demonizing or whatever you would call it, the sort of more woo-woo kind of stuff,
Mhm.
because I do think that the older you get, the braver you get about addressing these kind of things that you were told weren't real
Mhm.
or weren't worthy or were dangerous, depending on your cultural background. Yeah,
I
yeah, I
mean,
think.
yeah, I could definitely get into a whole, I mean, if we had more time, we both could sit, I could talk for hours about this, especially when it comes to religious groups. And, there's so many different religious backgrounds that people absolutely could put a kibosh to. But I won't say any specific religions, but there's religions are to control, to put fear and to separate us from the one source God consciousness. And that's all religion is. Yeah, it needs to be a foundation. And it was a foundation. I wasn't brought up religiously, but I took my kids when they were very young so that they had this background and foundation, a strong foundation of right and wrong, God, fear God, right? But when we fear God, we're basically saying we're separate from God. We are with God all the time and we are one of
Mm,
God. So
mm.
yeah, I mean, I could go down a whole
Yes.
rabbit hole about that.
And this is a conversation that I definitely want to continue. And I think we're going to continue this off the books and everything, because we could just go on and on for
Right.
hours on this and talk and
My
just go down that
passion.
rabbit hole.
Yeah.
Yes, I know. And I love talking about it because it's for me, it's a newer discovery of how I see things differently as of a year ago exactly. And so I would love to continue this. In the meantime, I think it's a perfect time to ask you where people can find you and maybe learn more about what you are doing. I know you have a podcast as well on Woo Woo. How can they follow your journey? How can they follow you on YouTube and maybe even be your guest or tell you some of their stories?
I would love that. If anybody would like to reach out to me, it's at sub2, SUBTO, Tigger 2 with two G's, TOO and two O's. And it's on both YouTube and on Instagram. It is Terry Huchel on Facebook, but it is Tigger next to it so that everybody can see that I am still Tigger. I actually did the profile thing with the blue check mark. And when I did that, I had to show my ID. So then it changed my name from Tigger to Terry. So cat's out of the bag. My real name is Terry.
We all know now.
All know now. And people are like, when I comment on something or post something when it first happened, nobody was responding. And I was, what is going on here? And they were like, what'd you change your name to Terry for? And I was like, phew, what I do? Anyway, sub two, Tigger two. Yes.
Man,
Go ahead.
great. I was going to say, and then you mentioned the project that you're working on with Jim. So that's exciting. And I don't know if that's in the next stage of you're looking for something, but is there something that you'd like to promote or an event or maybe invite people to participate in something?
Well, yeah, I'm always capital raising for multifamily. I help still connect some private money to, short-term lending, 3 to 6 months. But I also work with the capital group that does more like hard money lending and has true national footprint with that. And then, of course, the family office that I work for, if you have $1 billion and up project that you have 10% to put into the escrow account and get funded, then I'd love to talk to you.
Did you say $1 million or
A
up?
million and up is for the
Yeah.
family office group.
On that family office group, does it have to be a specific project or can it be a whole rollout? Like, oh, we're going out to buy X amount of these, or does it have to be we're buying 1, 2, 3 High Street?
If you have the projects lined up and you know you're going to go after them, ask for the moon. Or if you need a line of credit, you can get a line of credit, like if you need $1 million. But what you do have to have is a 700 credit score. You have to make sure that you have a business that has been, making money to be able to pay that back. So it's not like you can just ask for $1 million and just say, oh, I just started my business, right? That's not going to fly. But that also with my hard money capital group that we ensure to keep the newer investors of the, zero money down, zero experience and no credit thing. It's a great concept that PACE has brought us to, but it also is harder and fewer and far between that people like to lend money to that type. So yeah, so liquidity, credit, and experience is, a need for a more fitting capital group that I work with of the hard money space.
And there's
Brilliant.
definitely room for that work that's being done currently and what's being talked about within the community, but you're the big leagues now. So for the big league projects, we go to Tigger.
That's right. Literally, that is it. Like I said, since our meeting in Monterey, I have like 10 different people that have reached out, and we are trying to push through after they get their paperwork turned in.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Tigger. You are a
Appreciate you.
star, and we're grateful to have you. And thank you for sharing your transformational journey with us. It's been a long, interesting set of ups and downs. I love to hear that. So thank you again for taking the time and sharing that with us.
Thank you both for
Thank,
your energy and your leadership as well in the communities. I appreciate you both.
Oh,
thank you, Tigger. We appreciate you so
Bye, guys.
much.
thank you.